today, King Charles III will be crowned in a symbolic ceremony of religion and pageantry. King Charles III becomes the 40th reigning monarch to be crowned with Queen Consortium Camilla. The ceremony will see millions of United Kingdom residents to come together for the auspicious event. Well, let's take a look at the significance of the coronation and how British citizens in this country will be celebrating with the British High Commissioner to South Africa, Anthony Phillipson. Anthony, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us on the Weekend Report this morning. Let's talk about that, the significance of this moment for British citizens. I mean, the United Kingdom has essentially been in mourning since the passing of the late Queen Elizabeth II in September, and now they're preparing to usher in, its longest-serving Prince of Wales to be crowned as king, essentially.
Well, thank you very much indeed for having me on to talk about it. As you say, it's a hugely significant moment for the people of the United Kingdom. Also, I think it'll be watched widely from around the world, whether within the Commonwealth and beyond. As you say, I mean, Her Majesty, the late Queen, she ruled for a record-setting 70 years. So just by definition, it's 70 years since we had a coronation in the UK back in 1953. We marked her passing in September last year. But then, we started looking to the new chapter, and I think it was in October last year that they announced that the coronation would be on this day, on May the 6th, and a lot of preparation has gone into it, a lot of expectation, I think, building up for it. And I think, again, picking up on one of your points, there will be a lot of ceremony, a lot of pageantry. It will reflect a lot of our long-standing traditions, including the fact that it will be held in Westminster Abbey, where we have crowned kings and queens of England and the United Kingdom since 1066. But I think there'll be some modern touches as well, reflecting His Majesty's own views about the role of the monarchy in a modern-day Britain. And I think for all of those reasons, it will be a hugely significant occasion. What
can we expect to learn from today's coronation event, Anthony, about that point that you've just made? King Charles III really making a concerted effort to be a British monarch that is identified with, a modern monarchy.
I think there will be a number of themes that will run through, and it's also not just the coronation ceremony today, although that will be obviously the most ceremonial part of it. I mean, I think we should see this as part of a series of events over a long weekend. So tomorrow there will be a coronation concert at Windsor Castle for a large number of the British public, but also a large number of staff and volunteers from the King and Queen's charities. And then on Monday, which is a public holiday in the UK, to mark the coronation, people have been invited to get together with their neighbours and their communities and have lunch together, but then also take part in what is called the Big Help Out, which is focusing on volunteerism and working in local communities. And I think, again, that reflects His Majesty's own decades of public service, his own commitment to working within the community, working with youth, working on sustainability and climate. So I think it's through all of those themes that we need to see this occasion over the next 3 days.
Right. You've mentioned that it's not just about, the pageantry. There is, an aspect of this that reflects on just the religious rites and, what we're actually going to be observing. Well, parts of the ceremony, of course, that we won't be able to see, but it really is a religious and very spiritual moment that we're going to be witnessing. Are there certain things that we should be looking out for in terms of that element?
So, as you say, I think it is. I mean, it is a church ceremony in that sense. It'll be presided over by the Archbishop of Canterbury, but there will be some, I think, really significant moments. There will be a procession behind the King and the Queen of leaders from all the different faiths that are represented in the United Kingdom, and so I think that will be a modern touch. There will be some of the traditional pageantry, but some of that will be, I think, won't look the same as it did in 1953. Of course, very few of us saw it happen in 1953, both because it was so long ago, but also because people didn't watch it live. But I think lots of people have seen sort of, pathé image of the coronation of Her Majesty back then. So I think there'll be familiar elements, but I think it will be, it will feel like a more modern moment.
Well, how will British people living in South Africa be celebrating? I know a lot of them will obviously be glued to their television screens once the event itself gets underway, but how will they be celebrating?
I think people will all be celebrating it in their own way. We held an event here in Pretoria on Thursday afternoon with a large number of guests from government, business, civil society, the media, including some of your colleagues were there, and a number of people that we work with across our activities in partnership with South Africa across inclusive economic growth, climate, a lot of our achievement scholars. And we wanted to do that in order to sort of bring together the sense of what this moment was. And then for today, as you say, I think it'll all be live on TV, and I'm sure people will be celebrating it all in their own way. I've seen some reports of it being screened, for example, I think at the amphitheatre down at the waterfront in Cape Town. I've seen some other people talking about getting together in various different places to watch it. But I think people will all watch it in their own way, and I think it'll be a wonderful moment. If I may, just 2 points I'd love to highlight for people in South Africa, which is it will also be a moment of bringing a lot of different themes and strands into the ceremony, including there'll be a couple of really nice South African moments. So later on today in Westminster Abbey, as the service begins, there will be 6 pieces of work that have been commissioned by His Majesty the King, including one by a composer called Sarah Klaas, which will be sung by a South African opera soloist called Pretty Yende. Right. I've seen a lot of about her, talking about how excited she is about that. And then tomorrow, part of the coronation concert, there'll be a virtual Commonwealth choir brought together from choirs and artists around the world, including a contribution from the Soweto Gospel Choir, who we were privileged to have at our event on Thursday. So I think there'll be a couple of really nice South African moments over the weekend as well. Yeah,
talking about those ties and those relationships between the UK and South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa was, of course, one of the first heads of state to be invited to Buckingham Palace by King Charles III. Quite indicative, really, I would say, of the kinds of relationships or relations that the King would like to have moving forward with South Africa. Your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, again, I've said it a few times since the state visit, and I said it again at our event on Thursday, that actually not just His Majesty, but ever since the dawn of democracy in 1994, I think both Her late Majesty the Queen and now His Majesty the King have always felt a real connection with the people in the country of South Africa. So Her Majesty hosted the three state visits for South African presidents while she was Queen. And then it wasn't just that President Ramaphosa was he was the first state visitor to the United Kingdom, hosted by His Majesty and the Queen last November, and I think that is hugely significant and a statement of the value we place on the relationship with South Africa and the relationship we want to build for the future. Mm.
And what of King Charles III's legacy? It's a strange question to ask, but it's one that we ask at the start of one's reign, or in the case of a government, a start of administration, what sort of legacy they would like to leave behind, and certainly one that we end up reflecting on quite at length, at the tail end of all of that. But what has King Charles III really kind of set out as his vision for his reign, which will certainly be a part of the legacy that he leaves behind?
Well, as you say, I mean, it feels a little premature to talk about it, but also I would always hesitate to speak on behalf of His Majesty. But I would just reflect a couple of things that he has already said himself, including in some of his addresses after he became king last September. He himself, of course, as Prince of Wales, many decades of public service and commitment to causes like the environment and sustainability and youth engagement, including through things like the Prince's Trust. And he said last September that, he would be moving into a new role. Other members of the royal family, including his son, would be moving in to take, on some of those responsibilities. But I think, again, he's talked very openly about wanting to make sure that the royal family feels that it is modern and contemporary and is playing a modern role in contemporary Britain, and indeed through the Commonwealth, which he has also now become head of around the world. And then the other thing, I think he feels deeply about is, the nature of the UK's relationships with other countries, and the phrase he used, which he also used in the state banquet in November, understanding the consequences of our common history in order to unlock the potential of consequences of our shared history in order to unlock the potential of our common future. So I think those feel to me like the themes that he will be bringing to it. Those are the themes that we're looking to reflect in the work that we do across South Africa here on behalf of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, now there's been some debate, Anthony, in the UK around, the cost of the coronation ceremony, given the fact that we are living through a cost of living crisis, high inflation. It's affecting the world economy. What is the stance on this particular debate?
I think it's a legitimate question. I mean, but I also think this is such a significant occasion. This is not something that's going to happen very often at all. A lot of it has been funded by volunteers. A lot of it will be staffed by volunteers. So I think it is a moment for us to come together in the context of the issues that you mentioned and other things that are happening around the world. But I think this is a time to celebrate the significance of this occasion, what it means for the United Kingdom, the types of themes, and indeed to your question just now, setting the scene for the type of monarch that he will be and therefore the legacy that he will leave, as you say.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. That is British High Commissioner to South Africa, Anthony Phillipson, talking to us there about the coronation ceremony that a lot of Brits are certainly looking forward to.